Hello and welcome to my first Photoshop tutorial. In this video I'm going to be showing some very basic features, and if you've ever used Photoshop before or you sort of know what you're doing with the program, this probably isn't the tutorial for you. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is to open up Photoshop. I've done this already and this is what you'd be faced with. So yeah, over up the top you have your menu bar. So this is pretty much like any other program you would have used: file, edit, options, so on and so on. Over on the right hand side you have your palettes. I'll talk about these a bit more a bit later. On the left hand side you have the toolbar. Now each of these tools does something different, and if you notice any of the tools with a black sort of arrow at the bottom right hand corner of it, you can hold this down to get more options on this tool. So for example, this is the rectangular marquee tool, but you can select like a circle instead, or the single row marquee tool, and so on. Now each of these tools also has their own options bar up the top here. So see, it's changing for each different tool, and so on. Now, at the moment, we don't have a form to work with, we just have an empty space here. So the first thing we want to do is go File and New. And this is what we're faced with. So, name, I'm just going to call this Tutorial 1 for now. And then just set the whatever, doesn't really matter. But the resolution here, now, if you're intending on printing out your work, I'd say 300 is pretty good. 300 pixels per inch, I should say. And if it's just going to be something which is on screen, like an internet picture or anything like that, 150 is fine. So we'll just leave it at that for now and click OK. And so this is the form. This is where we do all the work in Photoshop. Now you can minimize or shrink this up on the top right hand side below the actual minimize buttons. So right here, click, and it will turn into a the same size form, but you can a lot easier to sort of move around, and you can have multiple forms open in the same program of Photoshop. Now, so I can maximize this and so on. I'm just going to close this down, and I'm going to open up a file. So this is pretty much the same way as the new file, except just going through open like you would any other program. So you get this option, and I'm going to open up Swirl, and here we are. So this is a little something I made a bit earlier. It's just a simple form with some blue swirls on it. Now the tool which I use to create these swirls is called the brush tool, and it's right here. So I'll click on this and you get a brush. So whenever I hold down and press, you can paint just like in Paint or any of those other kind of programs. To change the color in Photoshop, there's an option down on the bottom left hand side here, and you click and it comes up with a whole heap of different colors to select from, so you can choose pretty much anything. I'm going to go to purple for now and draw one more swirl. Yeah, cool. So now I'll take you through a few of the tools which will come in handy which are pretty handy for the basics, or just anything you want to sort of do with Photoshop. So the first is the Move tool, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It just moves whenever you click down. So you'll click and drag the mouse and it moves the picture around. Pretty simple. So yeah, then the next tool gets a little bit more complicated. It's called the rectangular marquee tool. Now what this does is when you click it and drag it, it actually selects a portion of the form. So these dotted lines which are slowly moving around indicate that everything inside here is what's being selected at this moment. So at the moment you have this space here selected, And if we want to do something with that, we can use another tool or pretty much any of the other tools to do something. So I'll go to the Move tool, for example, click on it, and you'll notice this selection stays selected. Now, when I move the Move tool over this picture, it changes shape, and that's indicating that it'll actually cut this out. So I'm just going to click and drag, and it's actually cut everything which was selected there. Now, if you want to deselect any of this, you can simply go Select and Deselect, or Control D. So, yeah. Now, the next tool, which is another way of selecting a portion of the form, is called the Lasso tool. So the way this works is you simply draw around and back whatever it is you want to select. So now you notice this area here is selected. And if I want to do something with it, again I can use the Move tool, for example, and just move this around. And then Control D to deselect. So inside the Lasso tool, there's a few different options. So polygonal lasso tool, which is similar, but it'll work in straight lines. So you'll click and then click again, click again, click again, and back to the start. And this will now create a selection of the shape which you just made. And then the last one is the magnetic lasso tool, which will pretty much stick to a color while you're cutting around. So, and once you get back to the start, it'll have selected this. And move that around, and so on. Now, the last tool which I'm going to show you today is pretty cool. It's called the Magic Wand tool. Now what this does is it'll select the entire range of color from what you click on. So, for example, if I click on this white space here, it'll select all of the white which is connected to it. And again, if I clicked on this purple space here, it would select all of the purple which is connected to that. So I'll click, and the purple is selected. Now, if I was to click on this blue, it would select all of the blue here, but it wouldn't select any of the blue anywhere else. And so now I can edit inside of this. So I can go to the Paint tool and paint. Now, I'm still holding the button down, but because the only part which is actually selected is this blue swirl, it's the only part which gets colored. So yeah, and that's about it for this first tutorial. Good luck with Photoshop, and hopefully everything goes well.